I used to think my parents were just eccentric, the kind of people who turned mundane family dinners into theatrical productions and minor inconveniences into full-blown tragedies. But as I grew older, I realized their behavior went far beyond quirky. It was manipulative, controlling, and toxic, a smothering cloud that I couldn't escape. My breaking point came 3 years ago. I was 24, fresh out of college, and starting a new job in a city 2 hours away from home. I thought this was my chance to create some distance, to finally breathe. But my parents, particularly my mother, had other plans. She called every day, sometimes multiple times, demanding updates on my life, criticizing my choices, and guilting me for not visiting more often. When I tried to set boundaries, she would cry, accusing me of abandoning her after all she'd done for me. My father wasn't much better. Though less vocal, he'd back her up, nodding solemnly during her tirades. His favourite line was, "Family comes first." To them, that phrase meant my needs and desires came last. I lasted 6 months before I decided enough was enough. I stopped answering their calls and limited my responses to texts. The distance felt liberating, like shedding a heavy coat in the middle of summer. But the peace didn't last. One evening, as I sat in my small but cosy apartment, I heard a knock on the door. When I opened it, there they were, my parents, looking grim. They had driven 2 hours unannounced, claiming they were concerned about me. The confrontation was ugly. My mother screamed, my father lectured, and I finally told them, "I need space. Please respect that." But they didn't. Instead, they escalated. The first inkling that they were planning something drastic came in the form of a certified letter. I opened it, expecting some dramatic plea or ultimatum, but what I found was worse. A legal notice. They were suing me for emotional distress and loss of familial support. I couldn't believe it. Who sues their own child? The absurdity of it made me laugh at first. But as I read through the documents, the gravity of the situation sank in. They claimed that my refusal to maintain contact had caused them severe emotional and financial harm. They even alleged that I owed them for the investment they made in raising me. I didn't know what to do. My first instinct was to call them and scream, but I knew that would only add fuel to their fire. Instead, I reached out to a lawyer. Sarah, a no-nonsense professional with a sharp wit, assured me that their case was weak. "They're banking on you being too scared or guilt-ridden to fight back," she said. "Don't give them that power." The lawsuit dragged on for months. Depositions were scheduled, evidence was gathered, and the whole ordeal felt surreal. During one deposition, my mother sobbed dramatically, claiming that my selfishness had left her unable to sleep or eat. My father, ever the stoic enabler, said I had thrown away the family bond. As the case progressed, we uncovered a disturbing pattern. My parents had a history of manipulating others for financial gain. Old neighbours, former friends, even distant relatives, all had stories of being strong-armed or guilted into giving them money. One particularly chilling discovery was that they had tried something similar with my older cousin Jenna years ago. Jenna had cut ties with them after they lent her money for a medical emergency and later demanded twice the amount back, claiming it was interest. Armed with this information, Sarah built a compelling case. She argued that the lawsuit was not about emotional distress, but a calculated attempt to extort money and control me. The turning point came when Jenna agreed to testify. Her account painted a clear picture of my parents' manipulative tendencies. Meanwhile, I tried to keep my life moving forward. I leaned on my friends for support, started therapy to unpack years of emotional baggage, and found solace in writing, pouring my experiences into a journal that became both a catharsis and a record of everything I'd endured. The trial was a rollercoaster. My parents' lawyer painted me as an ungrateful child who had abandoned my duties to my family. They brought up every gift, every tuition payment, every act of parental care, twisting them into a ledger of debts I supposedly owed. But Sarah was ready. She presented evidence of their manipulative patterns, including Jenna's testimony and financial records that contradicted their claims. She also highlighted my attempts to set boundaries and the lengths they had gone to violate them. The climax came when Sarah cross-examined my mother. Under pressure, my mother's facade cracked. She admitted that they had hoped the lawsuit would bring me back to the family. Her words were a dagger, revealing the true motivation behind their actions. The judge dismissed their case, citing insufficient evidence and clear indications of bad faith. My parents were ordered to cover my legal fees, a small but satisfying victory. After the trial, I expected them to retaliate, but instead, they went silent. Perhaps the public humiliation was too much for them. Perhaps they realized they'd lost whatever leverage they thought they had. It's been a year since the verdict. I've cut all contact with them, changed my number, and even moved to a new city. I still carry scars from the experience, but I'm healing. Therapy has helped me understand that I don't owe anyone, even family, my peace or happiness. Looking back, I see the lawsuit for what it was, a desperate, cruel attempt to control me. But it also became a turning point, forcing me to confront and break free from their hold. Now, when I think of family, I think of the friends who stood by me, the therapist who guided me, and the life I'm building on my own terms. That's the family I choose.